Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. Today, I am all kinds of disappointed in our financial media, more than usual. And today, to help you understand why I'm as disappointed as I am, I've got with us my business partner, the CFO of Sound Financial Group, and an all-around great guy, Jeff. So glad you could be here.
Paul, good to be here.
Now, Jeff Miller, episode, I believe it's 138. I'll have Miranda chime in and say something if I'm wrong. But I think it's episode 138, The Millionaire Next Door. Jeff, at least when I'm looking at him, is this direction for me. I would encourage you guys to go back and listen to that episode. You'll get a great sense of who Jeff is, how he found his way to Sound Financial Group, and kind of the unique journey of somebody building financial independence, largely on a DIY platform. And despite his significant efforts of having done that, he still found our advice valuable enough that he and his wife became clients. He later began working for Sound Financial Group and now is a partner in Sound Financial Group. Like, it is a neat journey. It's well worth a listen. Jeff, today we're going to talk about some of these articles that offer advice to people in an article format in a way that is intended to give the reading audience some real meat and potatoes about how to make financial decisions. Is that a pretty good summary for like these series of articles we see? Or anything you'd add differently to it?
No, well said. Well said. Yeah.
So, today, Jeff, you want to read this off for our audio only folks?
Sure. So today we're looking at an article from the Wall Street Journal titled, "A Young Couple Wants to Know, Should We Invest More in Real Estate?"
Now, first thing we're going to do. Now, I want to be very, very clear. I have a lot of negative things to say today. Like extra, didn't even have to write them down. They're just flowing from me naturally. But as we get into this article, the thing that I want you to notice, let's start with the title right now. Should we invest in more real estate? So let's start there before we go super deep. And maybe Paul gets mean because Corey's not here. Jeff won't stop me. He'll sit back and enjoy me burning it down.
Or I may even pile on. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. So Austin Lau and Megan Lau which if I mispronounce that, my apologies in advance, Austin and Megan, bought their first home last year in Northbrook, Illinois, near Chicago. Now they're considering whether buying more real estate is a good way to build wealth. Now, that looks right. Now they're considering whether buying more real estate is a good way to build wealth. Pause there. Let's go back up here for a moment. And we can see they bought their first home. But the article says, should we invest more in real estate? Jeff, is somebody's primary residence an investment?
It can be an investment. It can be an asset, but the way we teach our clients and people that we work with is that we should consider our primary residence as not a pure asset. After we've owned it for a period of time, it can become a type of financial resource.
Yes.
But we always have to have a place to live. And the place that we live, our primary residence, should be viewed primarily and ideally solely as that. Not as a way to add a tremendous amount of wealth to our balance sheet.
Exactly right. Now, having a paid off home, owning your home over time, eventually having it paid off may be the lowest cost way to provide shelter over a lifetime of existence on this earth. But your primary residence, we wouldn't even consider it an asset, let alone an investment, because the only way it puts money in your balance sheet is if you sell it and move to a new location, changing your lifestyle. And we define an asset as anything that puts money in your pocket now or has the ability to put money in your pocket in the future without changing your lifestyle. So yes, that extra money, if you move to Gilbert, Arizona, where the cost of living is much lower, great, now you have an asset. But even when it's in a paid off house, it's not an asset. And if you want real proof, here's a little thought experiment for you. Stop paying your property taxes and see how long it takes for the real owner of that house to come and claim it. You see, no matter what, if it's not generating revenue, it will be an ultimate bleed off the balance sheet. The only thing that might bail you out is a particularly heavy amount of appreciation at a time that you might not have expected it. Okay. So with that, that's the first thing we found wrong is at the beginning. They're saying, should we invest more in real estate? They haven't invested in real estate yet. They bought a house.
And can I make a comment on that first paragraph? I am already, after reading, the first 2 sentences of the article, my immediate reaction is, Austin and Megan, you got to pump the brakes. And here's why. They just bought their first home. So they've never owned real estate previously. Presumably they've rented a house or an apartment, but they haven't been responsible or accountable for any of the ongoing maintenance costs of owning a home.
Yeah, of even personal real estate. Right. That's a great point.
And there are so many surprises. I mean, I remember when I bought my first house, I had to buy something that was, really old and charming, and it was a 120-year-old home.
Yeah.
Well, within that first 1 or 2 years or 3 years of ownership, I can't tell you how many financial surprises came out of the woodwork that blew my budget.
Yeah.
So, not to get too sidetracked here, but owning a home for less than 1 year, I would offer that they probably don't even know what it's like to manage and own one property, let alone additional real estate holdings.
I think that's a great point. So let's learn a little bit more about the fact pattern of this client. What does their life look like? It says Mr. Lau works in tech and Mrs. Lau is 28, is an educator, 29 and 28 years old. They earn $255,000 a year. They contribute more than 10% of their combined income to workplace retirement savings plan. They have $45,000 in cash, built an investment portfolio of $222,000, and their total assets are about $683,000, which includes $32,000 emergency fund, more than $200,000 of retirement savings, and $145,000 in equity on their home, for which they paid $705,000 in 2022. Now, if they have about $145,000 in equity and they paid about $705,000, I think the equity is their down payment, because it just happens to be about 20%. We're having to make a slight assumption, but I think we're going to roll with that. Now, they have an investment portfolio. We'll assume that $222,000 is outside of retirement plans for the sake of this conversation. And they estimate their total assets $683,000. So they have $32,000 emergency money plus $45,000 cash on hand. So they have $77,000 that they exhausted 100% of their cash in a down payment. And they do have that portfolio worth $222,000. Their current mortgage is 4.8%, costs them $37.58 a month, including insurance and taxes. Cars are paid off. They have a 30-year term life insurance policy for $500 for him, $250 for her. I'm going to come back to that. They hope to have children within the next few years. They spend about $800 a month on food, including restaurants. They'd like to travel more and dream of retiring early. I'm going to pause there for a moment. So, $255 is the household income, and she is an educator. So for the sake of, again, we've got to make up some facts here. Let's just estimate she makes about $80 and he makes about $175, somewhere in there, for a total of $255. Okay. Their mortgage is 4.8% and is $3,700 a month. They paid $705, which means they owe about $550-ish on that mortgage. Okay. But they only have enough life insurance on him to pay $500,000 and $250 on her. Now, I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine, Jeff. I don't even know if I've told you this. He and his wife were married. He was in our industry and had some of the similar philosophies. So when they were married but had no children yet, he owned his human life value in life insurance, which in your 20s, the most an insurance company will issue on you is about 30 times your income. Now, we know that's more than enough to replace that income based upon 4%, but the insurance companies acknowledge that if you pass away in your 20s, that's a whole lifetime of earnings you're not bringing into your household. So if he's making 175, then he's fairly woefully underinsured because he should have somewhere around 5 million-ish if he was able to get 30 times his income, and his income is about 175. I see Jeff checking my math. Am I on with that?
Yeah, if he was just looking to replace his income using the 4% rule, he would need 4.4 million. But 30 times 175 is 5.25 million. So you were right
in
on
the ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he would have to have 5 million to replace that for her. Well, let me go back to my friend. He got the most life insurance coverage you could. Then he and his family went on a cruise, and he wasn't feeling well, so he took NyQuil throughout the trip along with margaritas. On his flight home, he didn't know it. He was forming a blood clot in his leg. He woke up that night with his chest feeling like it was going to split apart. Didn't know what was going on. Got to the hospital. They diagnosed deep vein thrombosis. He was having to be on blood thinners, and immediately the insurance companies were like, you can't touch life insurance for like 8 more years, at least. 2 weeks later, his wife said they were pregnant. Now, he would have been uninsurable if he took the plan that most of big box financial retail tells people and says, hey, you don't have any kids right now. She could start over for $500,000 and give her some starter money and help pay down the mortgage or whatever it is, but is wildly insufficient for replacing the capital asset that we are in the marketplace for our family, and we don't know what's coming around the corner. We are all one doctor's note away from not being able to buy life insurance again. I would offer they should get the greatest amount of convertible term life insurance they possibly can, because their incomes are going to go up over time, but their ability to buy life insurance will only decrease because we're all one doctor's note away from never being able to acquire life insurance again. It's not funded. It's funded with money, but it's purchased with your health. And you can't have enough money. If an insurance company doesn't want to insure you, you cannot give them enough to agree. Okay, so now let's get back to our article. So they have this wildly insufficient amount of life insurance, especially if they have kids, etc. But we can come back to that. To get there, the couple is considering investing funds, perhaps $30,000 to $50,000 from their cash and brokerage account in more real estate. Ideally, they'd like to avoid taking on new debt, so they might join a group of investors their real estate agent put together to purchase a few apartments or a multifamily home. Okay, Jeff, first thoughts on this real estate partnership that somebody's putting together?
Well, my first thought on what their potential strategy is. So they're talking about $30,000 to $50,000. Not a huge amount of dry powder or free cash to really go all in on real estate.
Agreed.
So their real estate agent, I think, said, yeah, well, I can put a group of investors together. Well, I'd want to know really who those people are. Mm-hmm. If they're my friends, they may not be my friends 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road into this transaction.
Yes.
The more cooks in the kitchen, the worse the soup. I would also be a little bit wary of joining a group of investors. Again, particularly at their stage of their career development, they're young. They've got lots of runway. They've got decades of investing ahead of them. So I feel like they're looking for some answer or some solution that perhaps will give them greater rate of return. The one thing that I don't even see in this article is a real clear explanation as to why the two of them want to or think real estate is a better investment than other asset classes.
Yes.
Whether it's a regular diversified investment account, certain types of permanent life insurance, investing in other businesses. There's this focus on real estate But I would, if I were meeting them for the first time in a potential, client advisory situation, I'd be asking them a whole lot of questions to really get a better sense as to
Like what their aim
aims.
is. Yeah,
Exactly.
what is their feeling the real estate's going to do to fulfill that? I think it's a great point. And
now they make one point further in the article that Mr. Lau, Austin, likes the idea of dependable income that he can file away mentally as extra to help accelerate savings. So it almost feels like he's looking for some type of recurring revenue that does not require a lot of his actual time, intellectual shelf space, or hands-on property management.
Well, and this speaks to, before anybody invests in real estate, what we talk about a lot is just read like long distance real estate investing, or any of the books that are out there that give you a beginning to end, building your team, site selection, cash flows you should expect, all of that. Because just the fact this real estate agent, which I don't know anything about the real estate agent, but again, my first thought is they're probably not selling very many homes in this environment, and therefore are trying to figure out a way to get more transactions going. Hey guys, we'll put together a bunch of investors. The problem is you need to understand the rate of return, the cap rate on the property, intended vacancies. Do I have to fix it up? What's proposed maintenance? That should all be an Excel spreadsheet before we make an offer. But the other big problem is somebody is going to get paid for all the things that make real estate more profitable, all of which come from this idea of your human capital being at work, and your human capital is earning you something that is not earned when I set it and forget it inside of a market-based investment. And I would share with you, and I would look forward to this. Comment in the video below. Send us an email at info@sfgwa.com. Hit me on the instant message of any of the social platforms, LinkedIn especially, I'm on a lot. If you can show me one of these real estate investment trusts that has consistently outperformed equities, one would be fine right now. And I'll tell you, after 25 years of doing this, sometimes they work out well. Lots and lots of times people end up getting back less than their principal or next to nothing at all. And oftentimes, after many, many years of being in the partnership, we just had a client recently who the building was supposed to be built, and then all the investors are supposed to get their cash back. Well, the environment changed. Now interest rates are higher. They can't get their cash back. It's going to be another 3, 4, 5 years. It was supposed to be 4 years. It turned into 7 years. Now it's going to be 3 more years till the interest rate environment gets there. That's not the end of the world. The building is finally occupied and full, but it's deceiving because we see our stock market go up and down all the time. But the real estate investments only really has a volatility event when we buy it or sell it, which is not very often. So we can see that they're going to end up maybe in this partnership. And I would stay as far away from those as possible, because the greatest gains to be had in real estate are if you are the person with the knowledge and the talent to get into the transaction and do so profitably. I do like this. A real estate portfolio helped them diversify their income, protect against inflation, is that they have $4,000 a month of free cash flow. And the reason I like this is it gives us a better ability to understand how much debt they could even service. So if they went and bought a home, how much money could they put down on it? Well, let's take a quick look. I'm going to pull up some calculators here on the other side. Who's ringing over there? Is that you, Jeff?
That was me. Guilty as charged.
You so busy, man. Okay. I am putting it into a calculator. I just want a payment calculator. I don't know if you guys probably don't care to actually see this. So I'm just going to put in here. We're dealing with this calculator right here. Let's say our investment property mortgage would be 7% right now and 360 months. And monthly payment is going to be 15. Oh, let me explain that. So they got $4,000 a month, but we're only going to do $2,500 because if it's in Illinois, they have notoriously high property taxes. You can see here, we now have $375,000 that can be serviced by $2,500 a month, assuming that the other $1,500 a month needs to go to taxes, insurance, maintenance, whatever that is. So we got about 375 of debt that could be serviced. So we could get around a $500,000 property, but that's going to take $100,000 down on an investment property. So we know that maybe they can get a house that's going to be worth $500,000. You're going to need $100,000 down, and it means they need to take on that debt. And the debt is something that they mentioned earlier in the article that they're worried about, and they'd like to buy for cash. That's why they're going in with partners. But, if you ever get a chance to see this, Mr. Lau and Mrs. Lau, I would really encourage that if you need to look at real estate returns when you just pay cash. One of the things that makes real estate such an amazing wealth building tool is the ability to leverage. So if you get a house and you pay just cash for it, then you're only making the rents and whatever appreciation is, which other than this recent period of time, housing has largely followed inflation level increases in value. So it's leverage that makes real estate have such a high rate of return, not the real estate itself. Last but not least, I would say one of the things that they should do, and I agree with this, what that other financial advisor said, a couple would make progress faster if they borrow and invest in properties without a partnership, which I totally agree with. The next part, I would not agree with, where she says, recommends a multifamily property with 2 to 4 units to reduce the impact of possible unit vacancy. I would go for 2. 4 units, that's quite a bit to bite off on your first piece of real estate investment. But maybe if you get together, good team, good agent, good property manager, and hopefully some good tenants, that might work. But if you're watching Lau's, I think one of the biggest things that you'd want to do is just put yourself in the position where you've got that $100,000 so you can confidently go into a property like this, have the down payment that's appropriate, have hopefully positive cash flow out of the gate, and last but not least, have enough dry powder on the sidelines that when real estate has its hiccups, and anybody investing in real estate for any period of time and who's honest will tell you there are hiccups, because you're not buying a regular investment, you're buying like a little business. And you need to make that level of assessment. Like for instance, you wouldn't buy a Baskin Robbins or some little restaurant because you drove by on the street and saw it. You'd want to see its financials. You want to see how they operate. You might want to talk to employees. You'd want to do all of the things that are appropriate for buying a business. They're just not that different for buying a piece of real estate. Jeff, anything you want to leave our audience with this week?
So the big takeaway for me this week, Paul, is that most of what's published out there in the financial media is very non-specific, right? So it's a lot of broad brush assertions or questions to ask. And what really is going on is that each of us have our own individual set of circumstances, our own aims in life.
Yep.
And we shouldn't, nor can we get appropriate advice from an article, whether it comes from the Wall Street Journal or any other publication. The best path is to speak to somebody who's an expert, who can help you walk through your specific situation, perform the appropriate analyses, and really put pen to paper and, determine things like the cap rate on an investment property and really get in the weeds with you. Yeah, and I think there's a team of people out there that can help provide that.
Indeed. And for all of you out there, you'd much rather have somebody get into the weeds with you before you buy it than to be in the weeds by yourself after you buy it. So that's an open offer from Jeff. Feel free. You can follow the link in the description of this video. You can get over to our website, schedule a meeting, email us at info@sfg as in Sound Financial Group way.com. And as always, and from everybody here at Sound Financial Group, we hope that this episode has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life.